Thol Joseph Gallen, and I would like to welcome our live studio audience, our viewers and listeners to this evening's program in our Root and Branch Association English Language Conference and Lecture Series held at the OU Israel Center in Jerusalem, Israel. I'm happy to share that we are now celebrating the 23rd and a half year of our conference and lecture series, which began in January 1995. In a moment, I will introduce our program chair, Dr. Les Glassman, originally of South Africa, and we both welcome our speaker this evening, Dr. Michelle Calvo, who is the author of The Middle East and World War III, Why No Peace? We want you all to buy Dr. Calvo's book, which has a foreword by Colonel Richard Kemp, the former commander of British forces in Afghanistan. The title of this evening's talk is Have We Begun World War III, as experts and Pope Francis already stated in 2014, can we stop it? Today is Wednesday, June 27th, 2018, the 14th day of, or in a few minutes, the 15th day of Tammuz 5778. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Glassman, who will say a few remarks to introduce our speaker in his beautiful South African Commonwealth English as opposed to my New Yorkese. Dr. Glassman.
Thank you, Lowell, and welcome everybody. It's indeed a great honor and a privilege to have you, Dr. Michael Calvo, here this evening. And just I want to reiterate Lowell's words. This is really quite a unique book. What makes this book, I think, different from all other books is that Michael's done something extraordinary. Inside the book, you have a QR. It's like you use a smartphone and you with a code bar, and the book comes alive. You actually see video clips from the internet, and it's for free, and it just makes the book really come alive, which is actually very, very unique. Those living here in Yerushalayim, there's a bird sanctuary. I don't know if you've been to it, where they've also got different stations at the bird sanctuary, and you use your phone, and then you put your barcode on, and then when you look watching the birds, you'll actually see a documentary on the birds as well. So Michael's done this in this book, and it really is very important because he's selected some incredible videos that you can see on the internet that's right here for everybody to see. And it really is quite unique. Now, Michael is a lawyer, and he's got a doctor of law from the Sorbonne in France, and he's also a member of the Israel Bar and the French Bar. I'm a member of the French Bar in Paris, and he's a former member of the ICC. It's the International Criminal Court.
International Court of Arbitration.
Yeah, of arbitration.
International Court of Arbitration.
Okay, the International, so thank you for correcting, the International Court of Arbitration. And I think without any further ado, we're all very excited to hear what you have to say tonight. I just want to mention when you read the title of the book, Why No Peace? Maybe you can mention maybe there is a possibility of peace.
Yes.
I think we're all looking for peace. We say shalom every day, we say shalom so many times, we pray for peace. So is there any way that we can, why no peace, how to attain peace as well?
Yeah, it's, if you ask the good questions, why no peace, you can find the answer.
Okay, so without any further ado,
when you know the cause, you can resolve sometime the problem. I would like to add something. Since I am a lawyer, I took the precaution to ask the people who did these videos, which are cited in my book, to authorize me to use them. And I got the authorization from memory, from Mr. Pierre Rehov, from Palestinian Media Watch, even though it's possible to do this kind of thing, since when we are citing article in books, we have the possibility to go in library and see the articles. So this way you can see also articles. There are some articles that I selected which are important. You can see them. You can get them from the internet on your smartphone.
So this is the this is the barcode.
Yes, that's right. And it happened that one day I woke up and I said to my wife, I know what I have to do to enable the readers to, at the same time, to see the book and to see videos and not go to their computer and typewrite again the URL, HTTP, and something like that.
Can I just ask you, before we start, your forward is by Colonel Richard Kemp. And I don't know, I'm sure all here in the audience knows Richard. I've met him, and he came to speak for one of our BITS alumni evenings. Richard is a unique, he got an honorary doctorate from Bar-Ilan University. He's the, I don't know if you're all aware, Richard appeared on BBC when they had the Gaza war, and the president was interviewing, said, what do you think of the situation, the bad situation in Gaza? And Richard turned around and said, wow, there's never been an army like the Israeli army that's cared so much about civilians. And she was in shock, and then he explained, she said, what do you think the British and the American forces are doing in Iraq and Afghanistan? And he said that the Israeli army takes such precautions to save human life. And I think BBC and the world got such a shock that here you had somebody who was not from the Israeli government, somebody who was head of the British armed forces, as Al said, in Afghanistan, telling the truth, telling exactly how the Israeli army takes such precautions to try to save civilian life. And that was not shown, it was not part of the what was shown on the TV when they showed the coverage of what was happening in Gaza. Was totally something different. So to have the forward by Colonel Richard Kemp, that is really, how did you manage to get Richard to do the forward of your book?
That's a good question. I dare. I met him once, and I said to him that I wrote a book about the Middle East and the situation in the world, and I asked him if he would accept to read the manuscript. So I sent him he said yes. I sent him the manuscript, and I sent him, in fact, a file to his email. And then after a month and a half, he replied, and he was very busy, but I am sure that he read the book, perhaps not totally because he is so busy, and he accepted to write this forward. I was very glad because I'm not a military man. I don't know a lot about the subject, but I am a lawyer who knows about international law and criminal law and international criminal law. I must state that I had to study this subject with my wife, who was a professor. She wrote several books on international criminal law and the procedure before the ICC, the International Criminal Court, as the opposition to the over ICC. And so I have some knowledge on this subject, but it was good to have his forward, because I think I didn't say anything wrong on the military aspect. And on the other aspect, I had also a good article in the Jerusalem Post by a former ambassador of Israel in Canada, Mr. Ambassador Alan Baker, who was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the legal department for years. I mean, he did all his life there. And he stated that I am an expert in international law. With time, I became an expert, yes.
So how we're going to work it tonight is, Mark, I'm sure we're all intrigued to hear what you have to say, and I'm going to leave the mic with you. And then after Mark's given his presentation, we'll open the floor to questions. So without further ado, Mark, if you can explain the process of your book and the highlights, and the comments that you've received, and then the audience will ask our questions. So without any further ado, thank you.
But this is not the subject. This is not really the subject of the book. So, if you want, I am going to speak about have we begun World War III, has some expert and the Pope stated several times, and can we stop it? Do you mind if I go over here?
No,
Or if I bring this here? Thank you. Speaking about World War III, we are thinking about a nuclear war. And when the question was asked to Einstein, he said, I don't know what will be World War III, but I can tell you that World War IV will be with sticks and stones. So we could think now that we could have a war. We could think that we could have a war between the US, Russia, and some rising power like China. But it is not the case apparently. We could also view a nuclear war involving Iran or North Korea. And if you have questions about that, I will be glad to answer. So leading experts and Pope Francis have said that the world has already entered World War III. And who was the expert? The experts are people from the IDC. Among them, an expert whose name is Boaz Ganor. He said it is a war of a culture of Islamic radicalism against the rest of the world, which includes the majority of Muslim world war. And he said essentially the Muslims have a responsibility to deal with those bad seeds which are coming from Islam. In June, he said that in 2011. After that, we heard about the Pope stating the same thing, stating we are now in World War III. It was in June 2014 when he came back from North Korea, from a visit from North Korea. And some months after, in September, when he said that world conflicts today, with the kind of crime, massacre, and destruction they involve, could be called a piecemeal Third World War. He said also that World War III is already here, and he said that the war is over jihadist terrorism. He said again, piecemeal World War III when he was referring to the attack in Paris. And in February 2016, he gave some more details. He said he referred to the many countries of Middle East and North Africa whose family, villages, and cities of our brother and sister in Christ are being completely exterminated. And he was referring also to the mass exodus of Christians from Syria and Iraq. And he was mentioning also the fate of the Yazidi. He said after that, again, he said in July 2016, this time, he said again that the world entered World War III. So there is one question: why did he say something about that? Why is he focusing on World War III and jihadist terrorism? And why did he say in November 2017 that the world seems to be headed into war, perhaps bigger than any before? He's the only one to have said this kind of thing among the world leaders. No other world leaders has stated anything like that. It is as if they are afraid to state and to analyze the reality. Some people are saying that he knows some secret from some visionaries from Lourdes or from Portugal. But it is true that the jihad which existed against Israel, which began a long time ago with our 1,200 women, children and men who were killed during the Intifada, and 88,000 people who were injured. It is true that this jihad extended to the world. When we were attacked, no one came to support us. And when we provided the Europeans videos of imams who were inciting the crowds not far away from here on the Temple Mount to kill the Christian, to conquer Rome, to destroy America and to take over Paris, no one reacted, and everybody was thinking that it was something local. The history of jihad against Israel began began a long time ago, and the world was thinking that if we could divide the land and give part of the land to the Muslims and part of the land to the Jews, then we will resolve this hatred. Because everyone was thinking that it was a territorial conflict, and the problem in the Middle East is that everyone is focused on this subject and treat the subject as a territorial conflict. But no one has seen or understood that it is not a territorial conflict, but it is a theological conflict, a religious conflict, theological conflict, and even a metaphysical conflict. This could be the subject of a full conference, but already in 1935, the Muslim scholars took some fatwas and again prohibiting peace and normalization with the Jews. And the University of Al-Azhar ruled that it was a duty for all Muslims to engage jihad to salvage Palestine. So in 1989, they went a little further and they said that it was prohibited for Muslims to give any part of Palestine. It means to have peace or peace against territory with the Jews. What happened is that we had new actors in the Middle East. We have the Iranian mullahs in 79, the Hezbollah in 82, the Hamas in 87, Al-Qaeda in 88, and the Islamic State in 2006. And the Palestinian leaders, the Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, which was created in 1921, the Saudi Arabia Wahhabis, the Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the Iranian mullahs and their government all share the same belief. The belief is encapsulated, as someone said. Someone is Mrs. Pascale Covarda, who was a former Minister of Migration and Displacement in Iraq. She said before the Congress, Allah is our goal, the Prophet is our ideal, the Quran is our constitution, jihad is our way, the death for the sake of Allah is our aspiration. She stated that, she's not a Muslim, but she stated that this ideology, which control all these groups, is based on the Quran and the Hadith, which is the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad. For Europol, because it's interesting to see what the European police is thinking about jihadists, how they define the Jihadist Terrorist Act, to understand their vision, the vision of the European, they are saying the Jihadist Terrorist Act are those that are committed out of the mindset that reject democracy on religious grounds and use the historical comparison with the Crusades of the Middle Age to describe current situations in which it is believed that Sunni Islam is facing a Crusader alliance composed of Shiites, Christians, and Jews. It's very strange because they have a different vision of reality. It's like being on a different angle. The ideology which justify the killing of the Jews and infidels, wherever they are and wherever they are found, from New York to Mumbai, Paris, Boston, San Francisco, San Bernardino, Orlando, Jerusalem, and Moscow, St. Petersburg, Berlin, Manchester, London, and as far away as China, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, and the Philippines. This jihad which justify this is that the jihadists have to conquer the power in Muslims or Arab countries and to kill as much infidels which are in Europe, I mean, which are not in European countries. They are thinking at the same time that once a land has been under the control of Muslims, that it must return to Muslim rules. The same theory is applied to Palestine. There cannot be a Jewish state on that land. It is difficult to understand that because even for Muslims like someone that you probably know, Khaled Abu Tomae, who lives in Jerusalem, he said Jews who have lived continuously in biblical Canaan or Judea for 3,000 years might well wonder how they can be accused of occupying their own land. We must add that Muslim conquest led to the application of Muslim rules in part of Spain, France, Austria, Italy, Russia, India, and part of China, done to the Philippines. And we hear that what is happening in the Philippines these days. So the Turk went also to the door of Vienna. So when you think with this, we have this theory that once a land has been conquered, it remains an Islamic land for eternity. When you understand that, there is no reason not to conquer again these lands. And a culture of crimes, that is to kill or to be killed, has been developed around the world. And this culture has been developed to a certain degree in the Palestinian Authority territories. Welcome. To come back to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, if the conflict is analyzed as a religious metaphysical dispute with Jerusalem in the center of it, a territorial compromise demanded from Israel will not resolve it. It can only be a step toward Israel total destruction. The analysis which has been made by the Pope has been also mentioned by a minister who is a very nice minister. He's a Druze. It's Yahub Kara, who stated when he sees what is happening in the regions, he stated the following: the agenda both of the region and of radical Islam is not two states, but one large Islamic state with a caliph as its ruler, as it was 50 years ago. We see that Christians are disappearing from Iraq and Syria, just as it is with the Druze, the Yazidi, the Ahmadis, the Baha'i and the Turkmen, as well as other sects and ethnicity who find themselves being executed. This has no connection to Israel. So if you hear someone who says that we are responsible for what is happening in the world, you can answer them that you have one minister who is a Druze, who has understood much better than anyone else the situation. And he says also this ethnic cleansing of anyone who is not Muslim. This is ethnic cleansing of anyone who is not Muslim, and this might lead us to a third world war, with every indication that it will not end here, but will continue on in the direction of Europe. What is the future? Let us try to do some perspective. First, the radicalization of Muslim states and the Islamization of his Christian country from within through terror are the main agenda of radical Islam. We have to understand and to know that the European way of thinking that the Muslims that they have inside their country would abandon their religion. They will become like it happened to be in history. The Italian become French. Some German, Polish came to France and became French. And with the migration, the people assimilated to the population where they were coming. And we must say that and recall that 57 Muslim states, which are members of ISESCO, the Islamic Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, which operate within the Organization of Islamic States, adopted a resolution, which is a resolution by which they undertook to protect this Muslim population. They stated that the common link between all these people from different nationality who came to Europe have a common link, and the common link is between them is Islam, and it is unifying all the Muslim communities outside of Islamic world. And they need to have social and religious institutions. It becomes urgent, and we Muslims feel responsible to take initiative for themselves. So there is a clear endeavor from these 57 states to continue and to promote Islam inside Europe. And they even stated, we even find that these social and religious institutions have become popular inside the civil society and have contributed to the conversion into Islam of many native citizens. And meanwhile, the number of Muslims in Europe increased. In December 2012, the Global Religious Landscape Report which was from Pew Research Center, stated that, recorded that there are 43 million Muslims in Europe and about 1.6 billion, or 23% of Muslims in the world, making Islam the second largest religion. And then we have to add the 2 millions who came in since 2015 in Europe, bringing a culture with radically different values. The Western reaction was I mean, there were no real Western reaction except one which was taken by, which was one of President Bush in 2005, discussing the war on terror in October 2005. He stated, "The militant believe that controlling one country will rally the Muslim masses, enabling them to overthrow all moderate government in the region and to establish a radical Islamic empire that spans from Spain to Indonesia. With greater economic and military and political power, the terrorists will be able to advance their own agenda, to develop weapons of mass destruction, to destroy Israel, to intimidate Europe, to assault the American people, and to blackmail our government into isolation." And as a result of that analysis, Bush increased the fight in Afghanistan with the support of some European states, and also in Iraq was a base for Al-Qaeda affiliates. President Obama sided with the Muslim Brotherhood, but he continued. We have to recognize that he continued the actions against Al-Qaeda, and he succeeded to put an end to the life of his leader. But we have to understand also that there was a great mistake which was done, which gave rise and strength to ISIS. In fact, the Iraqi government and the American disregarding the Iraqi Sunnis. And ISIS is also the produce of abuse of human rights in Syria and Iraq. That is a lesson for all of us, stated the Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights and Labor under the Obama administration, Tom Malinowski. He is perfectly right. In fact, they have produced indirectly ISIS, and by allying with the discrimination of the Iraqi government and the Iranian forces. And the force of jihad increased also in Africa, and also with the election of Islamists in several countries. And we saw that the Arab Spring was transformed into an Islamic winter, to cite these two words which were developed by Professor Rafi Israeli. The attack. The Muslim government in Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Indonesia and Egypt, and in African countries, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Cameroon, these countries are Muslim countries, were attacked. This is they were attacked, and Bush had a good analysis when he stated that this is their aim, to take over those countries. And these attacks were to destabilize them and to provoke their fall. But the attacks which were committed in Israel and other continents such as America, Europe, Russia, Australia, India, China, constitute another dimension, which is which is to kill non-Muslim and Jews in the name of Islam. You remember all the attacks which happened in France, in London. By the way, we decided in the book to put pictures of the attack and some list of cities and where the attacks occurred. We have I mean, ISIS is not limited to those countries. We have Islamic State terrorists operate also in Gaza. We have ISIS-affiliated jihadists who claim responsibility for sending rockets against Israel. They operate in the Sinai Peninsula. And we have to add also that from 2011 to 2014, 1 million Syrian refugees took refuge in Jordan, and a lot of them went to different countries, in Turkey, in Greece, and also in Europe. And today there are between, according to some estimates, and 350,000 and 498,000 Muslims and over who have been killed in Syria, and no one is demonstrating anywhere in the world, which leads me to come back to the idea that when a Jew kills Muslims, they go out and they attack them, and they go to the United Nations, and at the same time they have some minutes of silence in the Security Council. Can you imagine that? I propose to some of the Israeli leaders to provoke a situation where the Security Council will have to take more than a minute of silence, but to take an hour of silence for the Muslim killed in Syria. So, if you hear someone who says that the jihad is a result of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, say that now you have all the tools to respond to them, and the cause is that the American and the Iraqi disregarding the Sunni in Iraq. They didn't have any the Obama administration did not have any effective military doctrine against ISIS. So ISIS is moving into Europe. At the same time, we have in Europe a lot of jihadi who are in jail, who have been arrested and who are in jail, and who are going to be released. And to follow one man, you need 20 investigator, policemen, or spy to control them and to see where they are going. It's not an easy task. So the problem is inside the countries. And when we think about World War III, we were thinking in different terms. By thinking of war with an army, now we have something which is inside the country, and the war is coming from inside, and it is going to blow up from inside. Where are we going to be in a few years, when we will hear more and more Allahu Akbar, God is great? We all agree that God is great. But the way that they are doing it, and they are giving His greatness, is against what is written in the Quran and in the Bible. So, can we stop this kind of war, which will be from inside? It's like a rotten apple. it's very difficult when to resolve a problem. Some Arabs and Muslim states know the reality, and they are acting. In 2015, for example, Egyptian President Al-Sisi stated before the Al-Azhar University in Cairo. There was a connection in this meeting with the Prophet Muhammad's upcoming birthday. He said, "We are not doing enough with regard to true religious discourse." And he said the problem is not religion, the problem lies in ideology. We must take a long, hard look at the current situation. I have talked about this several times in the past. It is true. He is not lying. I found his declarations, and they are citing in the book. We must take a long, hard look at the situation we are in. It is inconceivable that the ideology we sanctify should make our entire nation a source of concern, danger, killing, and destruction all over the world. It is inconceivable that this ideology, and he said, I am referring not to religion but to ideology, the bodies of ideas and texts that we have sanctified in the course of centuries to the point of challenging them has become very difficult, has reached a point that is hostile to the entire world. It is inconceivable that 1 billion Muslims would kill the world population of 7 billion so that they could live on their own. This is inconceivable. And he goes a little further, he says, may Allah be a witness on Judgment Day to the truth of your intentions regarding what I say to you today. You must oppose it with resolve. Let me say it again. We need to revolutionize our religion. And speaking to the Grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar, he says, Honorable Imam, you bear responsibility before Allah. The world in its entirety awaits your word, because the Islamic nation is being torn apart, destroyed, and is heading to perdition. We ourselves are brigaded to perdition. I didn't see any result from this frank speech on the Al-Azhar University leaders. So it seems that we are going to continue. He's going to continue to speak alone. They will hear him. They will accept what he says, but no one will take anything, because in fact, if we see the reality, it's not exactly ideology. It's inside the Quran, and I will tell you why. I am not telling you. I am going to cite someone, an Indonesian who came to visit us 1 week ago. The same message was given. Approximately the same message was given by President Bouteflika of Algeria. I was thinking that it was a joke because he's so sick and so old, but he has people who are working for him. Some people are saying that he's just a president in title, but there is a court which is dealing with all the situation. He wrote, because it was his speech, which was delivered at the 35th session of the Arab Council of Interior Ministers in 2018. He said, we must call the ulema, religious authorities, and a center of academic research to work for the renovation of religious discourse and its purification of the wandering, to release the fatwa from the hand of a pseudo-fuqaha. Fuqaha means Islamic jurist, expert in Islamic jurisprudence and Islamic law, and to protect Islam against those who want to use it. action must begin at home, while acting in the direction of the other, which other are the European, the non-Muslims, which has stigmatized our religion, accusing it of fanatism, extremism, and terrorism, while this is just pure fabrication that we have to rectify and to correct. So he's politically correct. But he took some, he recognized the situation. But what is very important to know, and perhaps there might be some development, and perhaps the people who are dealing with the Nobel Prize, unfortunately, this man that we know, you and me, Galin, has left our world, but he was a member of a Nobel Prize committee. The Nobel Prize committee, which was given a lot of peace prize to people who didn't do anything, but they were thinking they will do something. The Nobel Prize should be perhaps given to someone whose name is a long name, but I will say his name is Fakou. He said, he referred to the UNSOR Declaration on Humanitarian Islam, UNSOR Declaration of Humanitarian Islam. He's a leader in Indonesia of the world's largest Muslim youth organizations. And they published a long article, a long roadmap to address rapidly metastasizing crisis in the Islamic world. He said, they say, and he says in his declaration, it is false and counterproductive to claim that the actions of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, and other such groups have nothing to do with Islam or merely represent a perversion of Islamic teaching. They are in fact outgrowths of Wahhabism and other fundamentalist streams of Sunni Islam. For more than 50 years, Saudi Arabia has systematically propagated the supremacist, ultra-conservative interpretation of Islam among Sunni Muslim population worldwide. So the opposition to Iran, ISIS and Al-Qaeda does not and should not absolve it from responsibility for promoting the very ideology that underlies and animates Sunni extremism and terror. Muslims face a choice between starkly different visions of a future. They will strive to recreate the long-lost ideal of religious, political, and territorial unity beneath the banner of a caliphate, and thus seek to restore Islamic supremacy as reflected in their communal memory and still firmly entrenched with the prevailing corpus and worldwide of Orthodox authoritative Islam. Or they will strive to develop a new religious sensitivity that reflect the actual circumstances of our modern civilization and contribute to the emergence of a truly just and harmonious world order founded upon respect for the equal dignity of right of every human being. Are these called sufficient or not, in your opinion? In my opinion, I think that the American, the European, the Russian, the Chinese, the Indians should act and pressure the leader of the Muslim state. There are 57 Muslim states. It's not difficult to pressure them, I can assure you. They could, for example, the American administration. I know that President Trump likes impose tax or to cut funds, so he could extend this policy to these states, or not to give them armaments, more grants. Okay, but he made a mistake. He sold several armaments and sophisticated armaments to Saudi Arabia. Perhaps he spoke about that. I don't know. This is the end of my speech. Do you have some questions?
I'd like to say something.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yes, I have until reinforced. Dr. Calvo, you mentioned, which I did not know, 1 million refugees from Syria were taken by Jordan. If I'm not mistaken, several years ago, when Saddam Hussein was destroyed, Jordan also took in 1 million Iraqis. I think they should get credit for that. That's a lot of people. Jordan's not a big or a rich country. To take in 2 million refugees, maybe the king should get the Nobel Prize. That's a lot of refugees to take in, by anybody's standards.
Yes, it's a lot for the size of their country. Yes.
You said something good about the character
Yes,
of
yes,
the
no, no.
Hashemite dynasty.
But they are receiving some funds from the American too. But they could have refused. They could.
Okay, well, we really want to thank you, and before we end our closing, are there any more questions from the floor?
Something, please.
Come on,
Okay, if you'd come through to the front.
Just- Anyone who wants to talk, just got a mic.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to Michel, because I know him from a long time. And he has done a very good job. He has done a very good job and very clear. And but I didn't read his book yet, but I think there is plenty of research and he found a lot of things. But I want to say that somebody else in our tradition found the way for peace. Perhaps because in your book you say, why no peace? I would like you to say next time, here is the way to find the peace. Okay? You mentioned it, but you say, why not? Okay, I didn't read it yet. Okay. I just wanted to speak about
I have a full
our prophecy,
roadmap.
our prophet Daniel. 2,400 years ago, he wrote many things about the four Malchuyot between
Kingdoms.
David and the kingdoms, between the kingdoms of David and the one to come ours again. 4 kingdoms. First was Nabucodonosor. Everyone was figured by an animal. He was a lion. Nabucodonosor was a lion. And then it was Paras and Madai, it was a dove.
Colombe.
No.
Colombe.
An ours.
I know, so here.
A bear. And then the third was Greece, Yavan, Greece, which was an eagle. And then Rome, the fourth one. And he said at that time, 2,400 years ago, everyone had a figure. But the fourth, the one we're living now, he was a monster. Why he was a monster? Because he said that Esau received, was the king, Esau, but inside of him entered some population, very wide population that spoiled him until the end. It will be the last kingdom, because this population, and he called it at that time already Islam. At that time, it's written. He called it at 2,400 years
It was
ago.
not existing Islam.
I know, but he said this word
He said
before it was existing. So I mean, we are living what our prophet said before, and we know that the end of this period, which will be at least the most at the end of 6 millenary, we come back to the kingdom of Israel again, and the peace will come at that time. Well, that's it.
Wonderful. Do you want to make a comment? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
You have a question?
I'll
Come on up to the mic.
I'm not sure I really need the mic. I have a very simple question, but it may be very relevant. If Dr. Calvo could tell us how many prisoners are actually supposed to be released within 5 years in France. I am referring to the prisoners that are that have been indoctrinized and have been fanatized inside the prisons to some sort of jihad. How many are there? Are we speaking of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 or what?
We are speaking about hundreds. There were the number of suspects which were arrested for religiously inspired jihadist terrorism, according to the Europol, were the following. We had in 2013 we had 216 who were arrested. In 2014, 395. In 2015, 687. In 2016, 16 now, 718, and in 2017, 705. So let's imagine that these people will one day or another will go out, and but this is not exactly only this problem. The only problem they have, they are fabricating in mosque. They are fabricating jihadists, and this is a kind of metastase which is happening.
Maybe can you get?
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
Doctor, why did you say that it takes 20 policemen to follow after one potential terrorist? I never heard that before.
I heard it from French policemen. Perhaps the French policemen are more lazy, but you cannot follow someone and tell him that he is followed. So you have to hide yourself. The follower has to hide himself. So they have to be. They are limited in they cannot hear their conversation at the same time, because for this you need a court order. So they have to be very discreet. When you follow someone with a car, with your car, you have at least to have 2 cars or 3 cars. So it means 3 people driving to follow someone. I mean, this is
Okay.
the accepted rule.
I'm going to suggest something. When the autonomous vehicles come, which are going to be here by the early 2030s, all right, they have 360-degree cameras all the time. And we're going to have a situation where, with that surveillance plus facial recognition software, it will be possible to follow anyone, anywhere in any city, not necessarily inside buildings, but anytime they move. You know, there's an expression in English, he couldn't show his face, but that was just a metaphor. Now it's going to be real.
No,
That we're standing on the beginning of that. You won't have to have 20 people driving people around, following after people when that comes.
But you don't have only to follow them, and I mean, you have to detect if they are not going to take a knife somewhere in a restaurant and then kill someone outside of a restaurant.
I understand.
You understand this is.
I understand, but
I mean, even if you put them inside
this
with
is
a court order, something to follow them, that is to say, something inside.
Okay,
the,
tracking device.
tracking thing under their skin. You cannot. You have to be really behind. It's a real problem. It's at the same time a civil right problem.
You've
You
defined it.
understand?
You've defined an impossibility, because you have thousands of people like this. You would have to have hundreds of thousands of policemen following. It's not going to happen.
No,
You've thought
this
that's
is
not,
this
that's
is
not
the
going to
point.
happen.
It's
So it's going to be
really impossible.
It's going to be replaced with technology.
Yeah. No, I don't think that technology will
Yes, it
prevent
will.
that, because
I beg to differ with you.
You can prevent that if you have something like on a big scale, and but there are always new people who come, people who are not radicalized who come, And these are people who are formed, I mean,
What is your opinion of the Oslo Accords, and how much of an influence has it had toward problems that have arisen following the introduction of the Oslo Accords?
good question, thank you. I am almost an expert on the Oslo Agreement. I want to tell you something that nobody knows exactly. Nobody knows. In the course of my research, I have been working on this book for since the year 2003. So it means 15 years. I began in 2003. I even began before. In the course of my research, I found a document which is called the Norwegian. Why the Norwegian? In fact, in 2000, the Norwegians were asking themselves why they were involved in the Oslo Agreement. So so everybody, all the staff, probably was renewed since '93, and they could not find anyone who could answer this question in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So they made an investigation, and then they made a report. And in this report, we see that the Oslo Agreement, the writing of the Oslo Agreement, was exactly what Arafat has expected a long time ago, in the 80s. Since the 80s, the Norwegians were in contact with Arafat. Why? Because according to the report, the Norwegian ambassador in Lebanon went to visit Arafat to ask him a question. Would you agree? I mean, in quote, do you agree that we deliver oil to Israel, and can you promise that you are not going to blow up our boats? So Arafat said, yes, I agree, and but when I will need you to discuss with the Israelis, please be nice with me and help me contact the Israelis. So this was the story of the involvement. So they want to know if they had also a role in the writing of the Oslo Agreement. And they said that one of in the reports, the minister was Stoltenberg. He was the father of the one who is now the chief of NATO, Secretary General of NATO. And he was the foreign minister. And Stoltenberg said the Oslo Agreement were exactly what Arafat has envisaged a long time ago. So at the same time, the Israelis were thinking that they were negotiating and having something. In fact, they signed something which has already been written and decided by Arafat. And so the plan, it's not very complicated. You have also documents in people don't know how to hide things, and even secret you can find them. There is a book on the resolution which were taken by the Palestinians in exile. And in this book, there is a resolution which is exactly what the Oslo Agreement are supposed to do. We try to get as many territories as we can, and then we provoke a war again. So the war, was there a war or not? He made a mistake or not? Because he was thinking that there would be a war. In fact, Arafat tried to make a war, and nobody knows it. In Israel, nobody knows. Some people in the States know, probably in the State Department they know. Israeli know, I mean some Israelis at the top know, but no one is speaking because no one wants to speak about that. Everyone is afraid of that. What happened is the following. You remember in 2000 when he decided to create the Intifada, okay? There were a lot of people. Do you remember that when the two Russian, original from Russia, the military men went to Ramallah and they were lynched in Ramallah? Do you remember? Then what did our Prime Minister Ehud Barak did? He said to them, "Go out, and because we are going to bomb." So the people who were responsible were not killed. I mean, they bombed the place, just peanuts. By the way, we got all of them. I mean, they were in jail. They were put in jail. But at this time, Ehud Barak was very afraid to provoke a war. 1 year after, in 2001, there were some people ambassadors of Saudi Arabia in London who said that we are going to have a war, a general war. There was a military man, a Russian commander, who said we are going to have a war. In 2001, there was a meeting of the Arab League in Cairo, and they were all helping Arafat. And then on the 11th of September 2001, there was the Twin Tower who fell down, okay, who were destroyed. And after that, Bush realized what was happening, and he went and he said in one way that there would be nothing existing. In the meantime, we know that the government, there were military exercise and coordination between the Iraqi, the Egyptian, the Jordanian, and the Syrian, and even Lebanon. So there was someone who mentioned that in a book, which is The High Cost of Peace. His name, I forgot his name. Bordansky, yes. Joseph Bordansky. He mentioned that in his book, but I found some other additional proof and declaration which are in my book. So you see, all this was planned by Arafat, and the Israeli were thinking, some nice mind were thinking like Yuri Savir, were thinking that we could reach peace, but he is naive, and they are naive because they don't know the culture and they don't have the knowledge. I mean, I can tell you that when I gave my book to an Israeli ambassador in some country, I don't want to say anything, and he was in the legal department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he said that to me, I had meetings with Arafat, with my minister. It was a woman minister. But I didn't know all this, what you have saying in your book. I wish I would have known.
Dr. Calvo,
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yes?
Not finished yet. What? Oh, but I'm so loud anyway.
I have such a nasal New York Jewish voice, I really don't think I need a mic, but I'll say it anyway. Dr. Calvo, you were born in Tunisia.
Yes.
How old were you when you moved to France?
13 years old.
So you really understand the Arab and Muslim culture in a way that most Israelis would not.
Kind. And in France, I had some people that I knew who were Muslims.
That was my question.
Yes, yes. You had the answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Les will give the
right.
concluding
Yes.
remarks, our program chair.
Dr. Calvo, I really want to thank you, and I want to thank our audience for being here this evening, for your expertise, your research, your presentation, which was absolutely really wonderful. It's frightening what you said, but I think we must be aware of what's happening, and you really outlined it amazingly well. So on behalf of all of us, I really want to thank you for putting this book together, so many years of research, and your understanding of the subject. It really is remarkable. And on behalf of all of us, thank you so much, and we just wish you all the very best. Thank you. And thank you all for coming this evening, and thank you, Lal, for hosting us. Thank you.
If you want to buy the book, I have some.
We talk all the time about peace, but it seems that all of these movements talk